Okay. Good afternoon, good morning. Oh, yeah, Dave. Dave's made it in. There he is. And I see Jeff too, so that's great. Oh, it's so wonderful to see some familiar names and faces making their way into the session this afternoon or this morning. Um, just going to make sure everyone is muted for now until we can get everybody settled in. And I'm sure we'll have some others joining as we go along. So I've disabled the wait room, so folks should be able to join us as they are able. Um, and what a panel we've assembled here today. I'm going to call this the dream panel, but maybe that's overstretching it a little bit. But we just have a wonderful panel. This is first session of four in our summer living series. So really looking forward to learning and listening and hearing from not just our panel, but also from our audience members. We want to encourage some interactive sharing of stories and experiences today and throughout the series. So looks like a couple people are still getting connected to audio. Let's give them a chance to get plugged in here, and then we'll get started. So we've got a great panel. Some will attend. We've got several here now. We may not have all the panelists on for every session, but we've got a good majority of panelists on today. So really happy to see all of the panelists as well as the audience members. So I've got a few introductory slides I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to turn the floor over to, I think Doug is going to start us off in a good way to open. Is that right, Ray? Is that what we had on our plan for yesterday? I know Robert was going to close us out, so. But let me go through just a few introductory slides. Everybody's seeing the screen okay? Should see a full screen on your device there. Everybody's seeing that okay? Just let me know if you can't. Panelists, does the screen look okay to everybody? Okay, I've got Shirley's nodding, so that's a good sign. Well, let me go ahead and get started. My name is Steve Steiny. I'm with the National American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center here at the University of Iowa. And want to introduce this session and this series, Summer Living. Those of you that have been with us for the last several years know that we had done a winter living series as well as a spring living series. So this is in response to some feedback we've gotten over the last couple of years in wanting to do another seasonal series. So that is really what we're doing, and happy to be able to provide this session today, session 1 of 4 with you. Today's session is summer solstice, summer life, past, present, and future. We have Doug Widow Jr. and Robert Begay are going to both be leading, getting us started with some discussion. And then our other panelists will chime in, and we're really encouraging all of you to also unmute, use the chat feature or the hand raise feature if you'd like to share something with us. Just a couple of slides regarding the center. As most of you know, this event is brought to you by the National American Indian Alaska Native Addiction Technology Transfer Center located at the University of Iowa here at the College of Public Health. I'm broadcasting to you live from the University of Iowa campus. We are part of a national network made up of 10 regional centers, a national Hispanic and Latino center, as well as a national coordinating office located at the University of Missouri. This project is supported and funded by SAMHSA. The content is developed by the presenters, and the opinions and views expressed today do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of SAMHSA, HHS, or the American Indian Alaska Native, ATTC. I will talk with the presenters today about sharing any slides or any visuals that are shared today. We may be able to make those available. We are recording today's event, and we will make links to that recording available within 7 to 10 business days on our YouTube archive Native Center for Behavioral Health website. If you're interested in accessing that, let me know, and I can put that information in the chat box. We have all of our recorded events are there and held in a secure location. So we'd love to share that link with you so you can check out this event in recorded version or previous events. We are not going to be offering CEUs today for this event. This event really is educational in many ways, but we really want it to be more of a sharing and interactive experience for all of you. And lastly, we will reach out to you via email, and I will put the link to a short survey in the chat box. If you have a moment to fill that out, we'd love to hear back from you. Your feedback is really important to us. We've included a couple of short answer questions on the survey as well, so we can hear from you in your own words. This survey is completely confidential and cannot and will not be linked to you in any way personally. So if you have any questions about that survey, please reach out to me here, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Before we get started, we want to take a few moments. I know we're here virtually, but we still want to take a few moments to acknowledge the land and pay respect to the indigenous nations whose homelands were forcibly taken and inhabited. Please take a moment to read this land acknowledgement, which was created by 3 former members of our team, Ella and Keely Driscoll and Mr. Sean Bear from the Meskwaki and Winnebago nations, respectfully. So again, today's theme for session 1 is summer solstice, and also just summer life as it relates to Native American Alaska Native culture. We're going to get started off with our 2 lead panelists sharing some of their wisdom and experience and teachings related to this topic. And then we'll have panelists also offering up their thoughts and reflections on this topic. And then we want to really encourage the audience to be part of this discussion. So we're really happy you're here and look forward to this series. So with that, I want to turn the floor back over to the panelists, particularly Robert and Doug. And if one of you guys wants to get started with the discussion, we'll go from there. So thank you.
Is Robert on? I can go first. Just your lips are moving there, Steve.
Yes, I thought Robert was on earlier. Ray, have you talked to Robert today? I saw him earlier, so we'll see if maybe he's having trouble getting on. But I did see him earlier. So Doug, I'll turn it over to you for now, and then we'll watch for Robert to come back in. And and see if he wants to also contribute to the discussion. So it looks like you are going to kick us off, Doug. Thank you.
All right. First ones get started by talking about the summer solstice and one of the stories that come to our people was the buffalo and the horse and the plant nation. So all of them, we don't refer to them as animals because refer to them as a nation. And in our language, there's no such thing as an animal. So a good example is a long time ago, the buffalo were they followed the constellation, and we followed them, and so they didn't just wander around the earth aimlessly like most people think. And so an example would be during that time, I would have my sun dance during the summer solstice, and as most of you know, that's the longest day. And I usually have that day on the third day, and that is also we have a healing round for people to come and ask for healing. And so I want to share this slide. Steve, if you could put up that first one I sent you, and I'll explain a little bit of that.
Is it the one, Doug? Is it the one titled the medicine wheel, or is it this resized photo? I think it's this resized one.
Yeah, it's the resized one.
Yep, I got you. Let me share this screen and see if I can make this work here. There, it's kind of on a narrow. I'm going to see if I can enlarge it a little bit, just to make it easier for folks to see. Does that look okay to everybody? Doug, does that look okay?
Yeah. Okay, on the wheel, that's to the west. Right below that it says Ocheti Shokui. And that's all the Lakota, Nakota, and Dakota tribes. And that part that's missing is Waziataka, is the north.
Hmm.
And up on top it says Wacheka Yuhapi. And there's a Wakia. Chakwi. ORG, that's like the North Star. It's Oglaksha and Nakia. So the turtle and the salamander, that's what we use. We would put the navel or the chikpa into those, and we will keep two of them. One that has the real one in it, and one that has nothing in it, because the negative is always trying to get to us. So that's why we have two. And Wiochpiataka is to the east. That's where that turtle is. Yechaka Oyate is to the east also. And Chanshasha, that's what we use to put in our pipe. That's our tobacco. And that's where I was trying to get that. I had a poster of that explaining that part, how everything ties together. That maybe sometime down the road, if I get this while this is going, I'll send it.
Are folks able to see the screen? I think Vicky said she couldn't see it, but is this any better? Can folks see the screen? Let's see. Vicky, is that better?
All I'm seeing is everybody in the group. I'm not seeing a
Oh.
screen share.
Yeah, you may have to adjust your setting there and just close
Okay.
your gallery.
Okay.
I think folks are seeing it. Okay, great. Thanks. Thank you. But yeah, try adjusting your view and maybe even try coming out of full screen. Okay, sorry about that.
Okay, and then this Wanagi Tra Chunku, that's the Milky Way.
Oh yeah.
Then there's Matro Tipila. There's like all this refers back to the creation story. That Eon created everything. For that, and then there's Zizecha. In South Dakota, near this place called Blunt, there's a formation of a snake. That's from the constellation. Then Itokaga is to the south. And so what we believe is whatever is down here is up there. And so the Buffalo Nation knew of all this, so wherever they went, we followed. During the summer solstice, when we're having that ceremony, there's a lot of healing that take place. There was a lot of different things that happen during that time that try to explain. But if you're a left brain thinker, you won't you'll try to understand it, but can't. So when you go to ceremony, you would have to turn your right brain on. And so when you do that there and see these things and experience these things, then you're not so much questioning that, and it shows itself for you for a reason. And all the, like I was saying, all the animals that come to help us come in the ceremony, and they're the ones that are talking. They're the ones that are giving us the wisdom. So there's the bear, the deer, the horse, whatever, even a prairie dog, spider, the ectomy. They'll come, and help the people. And so during this time with the summer solstice, it's awesome. An example would be one of the sun dances we were having. There was a storm that come through. It was a very violent storm. And just before was finishing up was heading to the sweat, and right north of my Sundance, there's a huge hill on the west side. So if there's black clouds coming, it's hard to see because of that hill. And as we were getting ready, finished up was coming out, and it looked like a white ball that comes over that hill. And it looked like a huge white spider that was coming down that hill just before that storm hit. and that after that ceremony, I didn't notice it till I got home, and my little brother was saying, "You should see this," and show him that picture of that next slide.
I'll pull that one up next here. I think this is the one, the hail damage one.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can enlarge this a little bit so we can see it. Okay, here it comes.
Okay, this is the tip of it is like east of Fort Pierre, and then you see how it kind of curves, and over here is like a wall close to Rapid City, and that left a scar in the ground. And the significance to that storm was exactly the way that star looks like. That's how our tree looked like.
Mm.
And if you've been to a Sundance, there's a fork, and there's your fork right there.
Mm.
And so it was a really good storm. Our tree looked like a fishing pole. It's a huge fish on the end, and it took all our tents, teepees, everything down. But the awesome thing was those boys knew that was coming, and so if that fire goes out, that ceremony is done. And those boys put some logs on the fire that were hollow, and so that kept that fire going. So even when that storm went by, fire was still going. So it kind of reminded me of that story in the big book. After that tornado went by, the guy says, "Ma, ain't it grand the wind stopped blowing?" It was kind of the same deal there. The fire was still going, and we continued on with our ceremony, and it was very awesome to see that, and that happened on the summer solstice. And there's also, we do other ceremonies, healing ceremonies at that time. And this is kind of getting off the subject, but during the winter solstice, we have a ceremony for that too. And all those go together. And so, like I said, we depend on the buffalo. The buffalo, they come from a matriarchal society. So all the things that we've learned is from the buffalo, the animals, and it came really close that they almost killed off all the buffalo. But there was a man that lived on our reservation. His name was Fred Dupuis. He was a Frenchman married to a native lady. He was going around getting hold of the calves and saved a bunch of them. And this man from Pierre named Scotty Phillips, he was interested in buying them. And so he bought the buffalo, and that's how the buffalo came back. And so just like ourselves from the boarding school and all the things we went through from the federal government to whatever the sicknesses almost wiped us out, but spiritually, but we're back. And the sun dances are coming back. A lot of our ceremonies are coming back. Hopefully our language begins to come back. Unfortunately, today they try to teach the language from the left side of the brain. And so that's why we can't produce fluent speakers today, because we're trying to use that method. And the last one I want to share is that that last slide of the medicine wheel.
That's about as far as I can zoom it in, Doug. The picture's a little small, but you can still see the visual.
Yeah. So this medicine wheel, each spoke represents something. And what that signifies is if you're sitting in that middle, it's like a amplifier. You're there sending your voice. There was one of these in Montana that we went to go visit, and there was these two Cheyenne warriors that came up on that. And what was happening was those buffalo were having a ceremony, and each direction where they stopped, north, east, south, and west, wherever they stopped, there's a buffalo, a white buffalo that emerged from there and went back in. And they did that each direction. And when that ceremony was done, all the buffalo, they broke away from that circle and they all started eating. But there was no white buffalo that was amongst that herd. So that that white buffalo, that sacredness, that wakan lives in the buffalo, and it also lives in us. So even though we can't see it, it's there. And like for example, with the language I try to teach here is that I don't just say well, this means this, I try to break it down. That wa is like a, form of action, like, is inside of us. It can kill you, or it can heal you. It's just like our thought process. If we have negative thoughts, then that's how our outcome, our life is going to be. But if we have good thoughts and good energy, then that's how our lives will be. And so I don't want to take too much time of Robert's. I hope he's on.
I think he made it back. I think he's back on. Robert, yeah, there he is. Doug, thank you very much for your open. And yeah, Robert, you have the floor. Got to unmute, Robert. If you can unmute, we'll hear your wisdom. I'm sure we missed some very important words there.
Can you all hear me now?
We got you now. That's
All
the voice
right,
that
great.
I'd recognize that voice anywhere.
All right, cool. Well, good afternoon. I do apologize of the first part of it. I am also in a different meeting, so I'm jumping between two different meetings. But again, I am Robert Begay. My first clan is near the water people, born for the Edgewater people. Also, my maternal grandparents are the Towering House people, and my paternal is the Red Streak running into water. So some of the things, the question was, what about summer solstice? Well, I don't have any slides. However, I do want to kind of talk about the summer solstice, what it means to Navajo, but more importantly, what happens during the summer. As a lot of Native Americans, summer solstice is really an important event. And one of the things that really, in Navajo, this is the time when we identify when the sun goes to the south, then starts its journey back to the north on the eastern horizon. And it's the longest day of the summer. But in Navajo, we call it shut on the ndesta. So that means that sun is going back north, or going back north on its path, going back to the north. One of the things is that it also signifies that summer is here. Now, in Navajo, everything has to deal with opposites and negatives. It's a word that you balance things. Everything's in balance. It's in harmony. When you come out of balance, that's when disharmony comes about. So one of the things is that if you have too much good, that's a bad thing. If you have too much bad, that's a bad thing. And I'm sure all of you have always heard this saying, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. Well, that is true in Navajo. You have to balance things out. You have to balance not only the seasons, but also the activities of Navajo people and Five Finger people. So even though we have 4 different solstices, the winter, summer, spring, and fall, really just identifies when what time changes and what the sun is doing. But it's far more important to understand the constellations. And then along with the constellations and the changing of seasons is how Navajos start to order their lives and what they do and what they do are not allowed to do. And those are the things you have to understand. It's Navajo, you got to have good and you have to have bad. As far as ceremonies, there are ceremonies that are specifically to different seasons. Like you look at age, the night way, you look at the mountaintop way. Those ceremonies really are ceremonies that are done during the winter time. Stories about coyote stories belong during the winter time when the insects, the spiders are asleep, are in hibernations, certain animals. During this spring, other ceremonies, but ceremonies that there are also ceremonies that go year round, what we call the holy ways. There's Navajo's kind of, it's pretty complex. It's kind of hard to understand. Ceremonies in Navajo, there are mainly two different divisions. One is what we call the holy ways, and then there's one that we call Hashkedas law. It's like a warrior way. And that, but all holy ways have a female and a male side to it. So during the summer, most of the ceremony that's done during the summer is focuses on enemy way ceremony. It's only one enemy way. There's no female or male to an enemy way. It's just one enemy way. Like the holy ways, you have a female and male side. The enemy way, or Hashkedas law, only is there's no gender differences to it. There's just one, but there's little variations to those. Now, in Navajo, during the summer, really focuses on one ceremony, and then it's the enemy way. It's not like it's not it has to deal with not killing an enemy. It's killing the ghosts of enemies. So, for example, if you have a Navajo who's a veteran or in the past is a warrior, has killed an enemy, it's their ghost that afflicts them. The ghost of their enemy, the person that they slain. But that ceremony really belongs in the summer. You can actually have it during the winter time, but you actually deal with it during the summer. Most of those ceremonies stay in the summer. There are exceptions, and in the past, enemy way ceremonies were done in the wintertime, but it all depends on the patient. If the patient's really ill and is on the verge of, I guess, death, you could have that ceremony during the wintertime. There's this, as part of the enemy way ceremony, there is a small version of it. It's not the full length 6-day, 7-day ceremony. It's only an overnight ceremony. It's a miniature version of it. Certain things you don't do, but it's still an enemy way ceremony. But that ceremony really focuses on during the summer. There are certain things that, but the holy way ceremonies, there's a few of them you only do during the winter. And that's what I mentioned, the night way and the mountaintop way. And there's a couple other ones, the shooting way, they 5 days. Can you all hear me?
We got you, Robert. Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay, great. So I'm sitting outside. I'm thinking this, but during the winter times, there are specific ceremonies that belong in the winter. During the summer, most of the major ceremony that's done is the enemy way ceremony. But the holy way ceremonies, like the blessing way, some people call it the beauty way, those are done throughout the whole year. There are ceremonies that is guided by the constellations. There are certain ceremonies like certain ceremonies are guided by constellations. When to start and when to stop. like Pleiades, Dilgehe. It disappears in the southwest here around the first part of May. It doesn't show up. It is in the latter part of June that Pleiades comes back up. That gives you the idea that when you should start a holy way ceremony, a blessing way ceremony, and then when to end the blessing way ceremony in the morning. So those are the kind of constellations play a bigger part in ceremonies than the solstice itself. Remember, going back to the idea that Navajos really their philosophy in is really not about a specific event. It's about how the universe works and how the earth works and how we as five-finger people occupy that world, along with all the other animals and insects and the birds. So there are certain things that, but a lot of it has to deal with constellations and the changing of the season. So to really say, well, that belongs in the summer and the summer solstice is very important, it's not. Summer solstice, the fall solstice, the winter solstice, and the spring solstice all are what we consider they balance each other, equal parts. They take equal parts in the whole scheme of things. And so I asked this question: what does the summer solstice do? Into my tradition, people that I learned from, and they said the same thing. Was really there's no something that belongs to the summer solstice. It helps balance the whole scheme of the other solstices. So that's one of the reasons why and it keeps time, but that's on the ceremonial side. But if you go into when Navajos say, "Oh, it's summer solstice," shut on this, meaning that the sun's going back to the north. Then practically, I'm doing this by practically, is that Navajos will start to think, now we have to prepare for the fall solstice. Activities that will come up. The later part of the spring solstice, you start to plant. Then the summer, you start to prepare it identifies, tells Navajo people that yes, they need to start preparing for the ripening of plants of certain things. So it kind of identifies what they need to do, and they need to start preparing for what comes along during the fall, and also at the same time how they need to prepare for the winter, gathering wood, storing food, certain things that they're going to prepare for a ceremony. This is what they need before the plants wither and die. So those are the things that really identify what the summer solstice does, and the other solstices come along. So, it's to focus on the summer solstice is kind of we can't do it alone. We can't just focus on summer because everything works together. So to say, well, summer solstice is this. No, well, it's part of a bigger scheme of things, of how the earth works, how the universe works. We as five-fingered people, Navajo people, the philosophy is that we are the bottom of the barrel. We as five-fingered people are very limited in knowledge of how the universe works and how the earth works and how they interact. Insects, animals, birds, they have a greater knowledge of how the universe works. This is why some animals hibernate, some die, and some come back out. So we as five-fingered people are very, very limited in knowledge of how the universe works. This is why in Navajo, and Ray can correct me on this if I leave something out or he wants to emphasize this. In traditional Navajo, we have what we call zitnata. There's this one point in Navajo beginnings, the occupants of the earth wanted to identify a leader. So all the occupants of the earth got gathered, and they identified which animal or which person or which species should be their leader. And they first picked coyote. They picked coyote for one reason. He was there at the beginning of time. So they said, yeah, he's been here since the beginning of time. Let's make him our leader. So they said, okay. So the next day, I guess voted him in. Said, okay, we agree, you're going to be our leader. And then the coyote basically said, tomorrow morning, come in the early dawn, and then we'll go from there. So everybody left, and they came back the next morning. And when they came in, they went outside and says, let's go outside. The coyote says, I'm gonna go ahead and plan for you guys. So they all went outside after him. And all he did was howl during the morning. He just howled, blah, 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 whatever. He just howled. And he did that for 3 days. On the fourth day, all the animals were still wanting to know what his plans was. And they kind of thought twice about it. You know what? Our leader, all he does is howl in the morning. That's it. He doesn't plan for us. So they kind of voted him out. And they said, let's go pick a new leader. But and the occupants of the earth wanted to know how to occupy certain seasons, what to do certain seasons, and what to do, when to do ceremonies and stuff like that. They were asking the big questions. But Coyote wasn't doing that. He would just in the morning lead his people out, and they would just howl in the morning. So they kind of voted him out, and they brought in Mountain Lion. And they said, Mountain Lion, he's a bad guy. He's a scary guy. He knows what to do. So they voted him to be our leader, of the occupants of the earth. They basically said, look, you know what? They said, and the Mountain Lion said, okay, I agree to it. I agree to be your leader. And he says, come back tomorrow morning and we'll start the planning. I will be your leader. So the next morning they came, but he didn't show up. And they waited for him. So they sent out the messenger to find out where he was at. And he was way out there in the middle of nowhere, sleeping under the sun. And they said, hey, we're waiting for you. You're our leader. All the people are gathered to hear your planning. And we want you to answer some questions. And he finally came in, and he basically didn't answer the questions that they asked. So next day he said, come back tomorrow morning. We'll continue our planning, my planning and our leadership, my leadership. Well, same thing happened. They waited and they found him sleeping on a rock under the sun. That happened the second day, the third day, the fourth day. When they got back together on the fourth day, they kicked him out again. They said, you know what? Our leader shouldn't sleep so much. That's not a leader. That's a bad trait. So they kicked him out as a leader. And then they identified another leader. And they said, yeah, let's go ask the bear. So the bear, they voted him in. And the same thing happened was that the next morning, the bear said, come back in the morning. I will go ahead and give you some leadership. I will tell you what to do, what is not to do, and stuff like that. So that first day, they all got together and the bear was there. And he said, these are the rules. This is the way it should be. Well, some of the occupants, the people he was leading, the other animals, disagreed with him. So rather than negotiate, then he just got mad and just threw people out, threw the other animals out of the house. Says, you know what, you're not welcome. So he threw them out. Well, that happened on the second day, the third day, the fourth day. The people said, look, and the animal said, we can't have him as a leader. He doesn't know how to compromise. He does not know how to compromise. It's his way, and there's no way of negotiating that. So that's basically so they replaced him again. So they asked they were all talking about then, and then the animals and the occupants of the earth said, let's go choose a bird. And the birds kind of knew that they were going to be chosen next. So all the birds, the animals that flew, the birds that flew, kind of conspired among themselves as, hey, let's all go to one side. But they didn't tell one bird, one species. So they were talking about, and then they identified who should be our leader. So what happened is all the birds went to one side except for the hummingbird, Tahiti, and he was just fluttering there. Like he didn't know what was going on. All the other birds went on the other side. He was the only one that was fluttering, flying right there in the middle of the air, middle of the place. So and then he said, "Well, come back tomorrow." And so they came back real early in the morning, and the hummingbird really didn't say anything. When he spoke, he kind of his voice was kind of I don't know how to say that, Ray. And in English, he was his voice cut was kind of shaky, and he kind of planned a little bit, said a few things. That happened the second day, the third day, the fourth day. His people and the people that occupy the world said, you know what, we can't have a leader that looks like he's scared all the time, that he's shaking all the time. It lacks strength. So they basically said, well, let's not make him our leader. Let's go find something else. So they discussed it among themselves, everybody that occupied the universe, the birds, things that occupied the earth, on top of the earth and in the earth. And they said, we can't find anybody that knows what happens in the sky, on top of the earth and in the earth. So let's identify something. And all of them agreed, let's say the mountain. The mountain knows everything that happens in the sky between her and Father Sky, that happens in the air, knows everything that happens on top of the earth and what happens in the earth, and all the occupants and what they do. So basically, they identified the mountain as our leader. To this day, that's why we have mountain bundles, because the earth knows everything and how the universe works. So that's why we have in Navajo, we have sacred mountain bundles. And they're identified, there are 4 major mountains, but there's 2 additional ones. But the earth knows how the earth turns, when the solstice, when the sun, my father, the sun, when he knows the travels and so forth. So today, everything's in balance and stays in balance. But we as 5-finger people, Navajos, have to constantly struggle to keep that in balance. It's like you don't know what's bad unless you know what good is. You can't have a good life unless you have a bad life. And the balance is trying to keep those balanced. When you become out of balance, that's when bad things happen. But solstice, now all the solstice helps keep that balance. And it's just one part of what happens throughout the earth. So with that is the end of my presentation. But in Navajo, everything is balanced. But we as Navajo people and 5-finger people, our job is try to keep that balance. And it takes a daily, it tests your will, it tests your faith, it tests your strength, everything. You have to keep it in balance. And this is why it's a constant, not a struggle, but you got to be aware of it. So with that in mind, the solstice, summer solstice, even though it's a major event from a non-Navajo perspective, it is only a small portion of how the universe works, which includes the earth and all the people that occupy it. With that, I that's all I have for this presentation. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Robert. There was one question that came in. I don't know if Sarah, if you want to unmute and ask that of Robert. I saw it in the chat. It was related to coyote
Hi
story.
there. Yes, I was really loving the story. I love all the creation stories that I've heard, and I was interested. I'm a DEI coordinator at Western Montana Mental Health, and I was told that coyote stories were only to be told in the winter months. And so I was obviously that's not a universal truth as we're hearing the story today. But I was wondering if you could speak to that for clarity. Yeah.
So coyote stories in generally, there are, and you are correct, in the general acceptance, they're only told during the wintertime when things, when certain animals are hibernating, when certain species of insects are not awake, like spiders, they're not awake. So those stories really belong, coyote stories are really told, most of them are told in the wintertime. But you got to go back and think about this, is that coyote stories in general really are moral teachings. It teaches what to tell Navajos in general, what to do and what not to do, and to identify what are the consequences of not doing certain things that they're not following the laws. There are laws in Navajo, what we call natural laws. They're not man-made laws. They're natural laws that guide how Navajos should live. A lot of those stories and a lot of that really teaches moral, how to act and how to be in balance with the universe. You know, you can't have too much envy, or you know, stories like coyotes that it uses animals and the coyotes, saying that you occupy a specific part of the universe. So what I'm saying is that we as 5-fingered people, now the people, occupy, and we have knowledge and we have authority over small portions of things. So I always use, like, for example, most people say, well, Navajos are scared of death or human remains. That's not true. The fact is that there are certain things, because we lack the knowledge as 5-fingered Navajo people of what happens after death. You know, you see from the JOD Christian, they said, well, when you die, you know, your body goes back in the earth, but your soul goes to heaven or hell or whatever. In Navajo and traditional thought is that we don't know, we have very limited knowledge after what happens to a human person. We know we put them back in the earth, but what happens to their soul? Is there such thing as a heaven? Is there such thing as a hell? Well, our knowledge is very limited on that. So coyote stories really teaches us the limitations of our knowledge and gives us limitations of what we should know. Like the other thing is, like, insects are allowed to dig up graves or occupy dead bodies. They can, you know, like maggots and stuff, like, because they understand how that works. We don't, as 5-fingered. There are things that in Navajo that says everything balil bedazlaholno bad. There are consequences of certain things that you do. Consequences that may happen immediately, but consequences that may be way down the road. Meaning there are negative things that always happen. And then there's positive things. There's a story from the Enemy Way ceremony where Monster Slayer and Born for Water were dying, one of the hero twins. And he was dying. And the holy people were trying to figure out what was killing him, what was making him sick, what was making him ill. So one of the, what we call, the dragonfly says, He basically said one thing. He says, nothing's killing him. Nobody's killing him. Nobody's making him sick. It is his own decision. So what that dragonfly don't tell said is that it was his decisions to get rid of the monster that preyed on Navajo people. And he's the one that made that decision to kill off the monsters that were preying on Navajo. It's the ghost of those enemies that's killing him. It's nobody's decision, but it was his own. And that's the consequence. So coyote stories talk about stuff like that, where you're allowed and where you're not allowed. And that's the whole focus of coyote stories. But most of that stuff is taught during the wintertime. I hope I answered your question.
Yes, so it's not a hard, fast rule that they're only spoken in the winter then? And that's because that's how it was presented to me, is that it was an absolute no. And clearly there's exceptions, but I wanted to just be clear, as I move forward with trainings, when I just don't want to speak out of turn.
So, and you're right. There are certain things that most of that stuff is done during the winter time. Coyote stories is the same, but everything is done in context. So if you're going to talk about what Coyote did during the wintertime, you just don't do it in public during the summer. The context is you have to be within a ceremonial setting or an area where you're teaching some, not just out in the middle, meaning that you're doing it in general public.
Right. So
you have to have that context.
Training and education is a different thing.
Correct.
Okay, that is so helpful for me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Any other questions?
Thank you again, Robert and Doug, for getting us started on this discussion. We want to maybe open the floor now to some of our panelists, as well as encourage audience members to also join the conversation. So I'll open the floor back to our panelists and to our audience.
Hey, Steve, can you mute me? I'm trying.
It is done. No one's ever asked me to mute them before, Robert. This is that felt kind of good. I don't know why, but yes, I got you muted, Robert. Thanks again for getting us started, and Doug as well.
This is Shirley. I just thought I'd pipe in there. Sorry for eating in front of you, but I've been, I live in Fairbanks, Alaska. The clan I come from is Tonitzagaltsifna. I come from the Middle People. Prior to us becoming known as Athabascans, we were known by our clans. And in my mother's time, my mother died at 91 in 2017. And I had asked her one time, her and I were really close, and I hung around elders most of my life. And I asked her, Mom, when did we become Athabascans? And she just went like this. Oh, I don't know. All of a sudden we became Athabascans. So some of the names that were given up here, we hear them all the time. Even the word native is not our word. We use that pretty freely up here, Alaska Native. And I don't have a problem with that. I do and I don't, but I'm, the world is evolving around me and with me. And so what do you do? I want to thank Robert and Doug for sharing with us. Pretty awesome. You guys, your knowledge is amazing. I was around, my ex-husband is from Pine Ridge. So he and his people, I was able to learn quite a bit from them. And my daughter, she's part Lakota, and she's also, she's Oglala and Santee, and she's Ponca on that side. And then my side, she's two different kinds of what they call Athabascans. But she came from me. I'm the mother. We're matrilineal people. So she is mine, and she's Tony Zagaltsifna from the Middle People. And it said we come from the middle of the Yukon River on an island. Our clan does. And there's a lot of stories about us, and that I'll talk about that in the future. As you're talking, Doug and Robert, so many things came to me. And one of them is I've been dealing with a sinus issue. And to me, the sinuses have to do with my spiritual part of me. And I let them get really sick. They got physically sick. And I came back to myself only in the last couple of days, came back to my real self, my powerful self, the one that the Creator gave me. I remembered that I needed to not forget about my Creator, God, Dinahato. I remembered that I have to eat my foods for my body, the kind of food that we were given in the beginning. And to drink lots of water. I drink lots of water. That's one of the good things. And to make sure I pray. And I had put all of that aside to focus on other people. I concern myself with my family, my partner. I put myself aside and my Creator aside for about a week. And it also slowed me down quite a bit. Slowed me down where I watched 4 movies on Prime Video. But I'm happy to say that I'm back to myself and remembering what I'm about, and also remembering that my Creator gave me certain gifts that I need to use, and I need to teach, and I need to not give away myself. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes I made while you're talking. Our stories are told in the winter time, and our stories when we're small were about how to be a good little human being, how to be a good man or good woman, the morals and values and beliefs of our people. And we have a lot of teachings that traditional people follow. There's women's ways and men's ways, and there's things that women know that men know nothing about. And things men know that women know nothing about. our knowledge was always kept separate. In real life, maybe back in the 50s, 1950s, the men were still sitting on one side when they gathered together and the women on the other side. Men and women didn't sit side by side like that. It's only in recent times they start doing that. You never saw our women walking around with like tank tops and shorts and stuff like that. And the elders, you don't see them like that. And they were taught the respect for men. So when we walk around like that in public around other people, we distract people from what they're supposed to be doing. It's a distraction. So you see, when you go to places up here, you'll see who knows that and who doesn't know that. I remember my mom, she was, only thing sticking out was her head and her hands. Everything else was covered. And all the elders, when you see them at our potlatch, our ceremonies, head to toe, their head sticking out, and they might have gloves on when we're dancing. Just their head sticking out. So I start remembering while you guys are talking, you know, women have a different way of understanding than men. I'm 71 now. My partner is 65. And it's like I told him, you never met a woman like me. And I don't think I've met a man like you, because he's a man that in this day and age, he shares knowledge with me, maybe because I'm older. But prior to when I was younger, no man shared knowledge. I learned how to conduct myself in a respectful manner. I know what I'm supposed to do and what I'm not supposed to do. And in this world today, it's hard to follow that because there are so many people that didn't get that knowledge, didn't get that training. And if they did, they didn't internalize it. Anyway, I'm speaking from a woman's point of view and from as a woman from up here. I live in the interior of Alaska most of my life. We have 42 tribes in this area. And I've done all kinds of work for my people, traveled to all the villages, done all kinds of community work, all kinds of healing work, all kinds of things. And I've had a pretty darn good life. And I was just thinking, you know, as an elder now, I get to pick and choose what I'm willing to do, which is kind of cool in a way. But with my people, there's certain things you have to do as an elder. You can't say, oh, well, I gotta know, I'm gonna go, I could go hide in a berry patch pretty soon. In this time of the year, people are gathering together and they're going to, families are fishing, getting ready to fishing. And what I was eating was salmon strips from last year, because I remembered thinking about you guys and talking yesterday. I thought about the food that sustains us and what we gather in the summer. So I thought, hey, well, while I'm sitting here on this Zoom webinar, I will eat my food and eat my sacred pilot boy bread, for those of you who know what that is. It's just a round cracker natives got hooked on up here. But we usually eat that with our fish. But I enjoyed that, and someday, you know, if I'm around you, I usually carry it around. Maybe you can taste some of it if you haven't already. I know Ray has. I don't know about Steve. I just know a lot of people from this on this, just from attending these Zooms. What I said was I put aside my happiness for a minute. I put aside my teachings. I put aside my creator, and I became my human self. And the human self to me is concerned with this kind of world that we live in. You know, whether it's on tribal lands or whether it's on, you know, in the cities. I put everything aside. And I like to be this happy person, you know. I'm generally pretty happy and kind of goofy and pretty happy. I talked to my elder mentor. She's my a language mentor, and her name is Eliza Jones. She's in Kaikuk. She's in a village, and I called her up, and she's 84. And she started teaching me when I was probably 30 something. And I wanted a name for a business because I need to have a business license for this world for today for artwork, for copyrighted artwork. And I wanted a happy name. I said, you know, when you make something and you're happy making it, and then you're going to sell it or give it to somebody, they're happy when they get it, you know, that happiness comes from inside. And she was giving me these names, and then she started teaching me a prayer. And then I said, how about Tsunami? Tsunami. I said, how about just Tsunami? And she said, yes, that's a good name. That's a good name. In our language, that means happiness. Even when you say it, you know, it makes you happy. So Tsunami, that's the name of it. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I can talk to you guys forever. It's really good to be on this virtual meeting and see everybody and people that are here listening. Don't be afraid to speak up because it's for everybody. It's not just for us. And Anabasi, thank you very much for listening to me. And again, thank you to Robert and Doug for their knowledge. Wow. All right, Anabasi.
Guyana, Shirley, thank you. And ATTC to both of you for sharing your knowledge. And I don't know if I'm skipping or, you know, jumping ahead of anybody because I'm driving and I'm sorry. But what came up for me, at least with cultural endeavors, we do have ceremonies throughout, you know, the year marking for summer solstice and winter and our new year, which happens, you know, the end of fall. But I was driving back from, you know, our residential facility for SUD treatment comorbidities. And as I was coming back, of course, it went in and out a few times, but I had gotten to this good halfway point where it doesn't seem to cut out anymore. And I was reminded of what lands I was in. And I seen, you know, Nanahala Gorge off to my right. And its original name is Nada Yetli, which is the noonday sun. It is a place close to us that we say, you know, stone coat and his sister Spearfinger came from, which are two entities that feed on, well, Stonecoat is a male entity that would feed on hunters. And he came through his area. It looked like he was a shining stone with a cane that he would put up on his nose and search them out with their scent. And his sister, Spearfinger, had a long awl finger. She had a shawl covering all the time. But as she would walk through our mountains, the main time that we would see her is in fall time. And I was reminded that we are supposed to be telling the stories of how we had gotten our songs and dances and our medicine from being able to manipulate our world around us, but to do it in a way that's of respect. And to do that, you must study your environment, and you must study the animals and the plants within it. So you must know when things are coming about, or when they're, budding, or when they're out and about in the world. Like I believe Robert had spoke of, the bear when he goes, into hibernation. In the summertime, the bear is not hibernating; it's out getting food, looking for things. And the main diet for our bears here is acorns, which is high in tannins, which is a chemical substance that's, within lots of things. Like you guys might know them as like yellow root, or you might know them as echinacea, or like a yellow powder, turmeric. So these are high in tannins, and they help us, fight off infection, but they also, calm or settle your stomach, which is what we associate with bears. We use an awful lot with that because, sustenance and, knowing when you're hungry comes from your stomach. But our bows are mainly made out of bear intestine for, the twine. And there's so much complex knowledge, not complicated. I want to be very clear, but complex knowledge that goes into the seeking the resource. I speak about Stonecoat and Spearfinger. I speak of Nada Ayetli, which is the noonday sun, because we had studied this region of this gorge where the sun passes over, and in the summertime, there is about 1 or 2 hours within the daytime that this whole region light or direct sunlight. It's within summertime. And when I was a boy, we would talk about how we would never go there within the summertime, even though they have all of these people that go there to raft, because it's a big rafting resort for a lot of people. And I was always, wondering why we don't go there in the summertime. And it's because when that light is shining on there, it's awakening something new. And I did not get this information until I was about 17 or 18. We had a different place. We were partaking in Sundance, and we had met a father who was very appreciative because he had lost a child in the Nantahala Gorge. And he had went to Sundance to pray about what had happened. His daughter had went missing for 14 days. And she had been taken under the rapids because they had went there in the summertime for a family vacation. And she had showed back up 14 days later on the side of the river. But they had, worn out all their money trying to look for her, staying in a hotel. And she said that there were little people that took care of her while she was not amongst them, that she didn't know the language that they spoke. And this was crazy for us because this is a man not of our culture and a child not of our culture. But she had spoke about these little people and how they would keep her from eating certain things. And she didn't understand why. And it was food that she had never heard of before. But, you know, the traditionalists in my community, they'd always speak about how knowing your place and knowing where you are and what you serve, i.e., being a steward of the land and of the people, of all the people, you know, four-leggeds, the winged ones, all of these things, appreciating the value they bring, but knowing specifically their cycles and how you turn through the cycles with them, because you have a piece of that. We are all here and put here for a reason. And we need to pay attention even to those things that we may not think exist nowadays, like Stonecoat, Spearfinger, who would feed on our livers for Spearfinger or children, their livers, or, you know, the one that hunts our hunters or our men, which is Stonecoat. But being able to understand the cycles in which we are in what place. And I know that from my childhood, not to go to a place like the gorge within the summertime, because things are active at those times that may not be active or maybe dormant most times of the year, but placing an importance on when and where we're supposed to be, when and where we're supposed to be there, and how we're supposed to act accordingly when we do, which is, you know, our songs, our dances, our prayers, and our practices. Like we wash 7 times a day to keep ourselves clean and allow ourselves a bit of understanding with each other and with ourselves, so that we're not causing disharmony amongst our community. Because taking care of oneself and getting rid of one's own anxious memories or one's foul understandings or anger within our community is a responsibility or duty we have, not just to ourselves, because we shouldn't be carrying it, but with each other, because we all share all of the resource here together. So this is a time to acknowledge the growth that is around us, what is coming available, what is going to be a resource, and how we are going to use it together. Because if we step out of those confines of understanding of what it is to be a human within this world and to participate as a human, to take care of the things with names and to give the things that don't have names, so that we can take care of them or be stewards of them, then we lose our place amongst our knowledge and being able to learn, because it will show it to us, like Robert said, these are not man-made laws. These are natural laws, things that happen on their own. I could explain gravity to you, or I could show it to you, and you would understand, because you feel the pull. No words need to be understood between us. If I pick something up and I drop it, you know it's going to fall, because those are the way of our nature, of our world. And these are the things that our ancestors have passed on to me, especially within this time. And I appreciate you all for reminding of what has come to me for and the green that surrounds us and all of the water that comes. If we did not have these trees here, there is an abundant source of water that would waterlog our lands. We would be a marshland. We would have different things here available to us. But because we have so much greenery, it takes down the water table to a sustainable level for us to be able to use as a resource. And I just wanted to leave you guys with that thought. I appreciate you for giving me time to speak.
Steve, did you get that poster?
Did you send me something?
Yeah, and I sent it through a text.
Oh, let's see. Oh, did you send it to my work phone? You may have to send it to my personal phone. I didn't bring my work phone to the office. We'll open the floor up though to others. Thank you, Kiave, for that share while driving too. That's very impressive. Hands-free, man of many skills. We want to open the floor as I try and get this image from Doug. Open the floor to others.
Yeah, hello there, Steve and Ray and everybody else. Yeah, this is Jeff Couchy. Ithatunga Paunimik, Pagalawak Ben Imnalu Pagalawak PC. Uang Paunimik in the Paxton, Atira Jeff Couchy in the Lang Milkston, Anchorage Mill Riunga. And I'm my Indo-Pak name is Paulian, and then my wife's language, I'm Apakpak, and so there's my Indo-Pak, there's the Indo-Pak, and then there's the Yupik language. So I have actually three names, one in Indo-Pak, one in Yupik, and one in English. I'm originally from White Mountain, and I've been living here in Anchorage, and yes, it's summer solstice is a real busy time, and if I was in the village, living in the village, I'd be even more busier, and I wouldn't be talking at this time. It'd be in fish camp, and fish camp is usually from mid-June through mid-July, or maybe even through the first week of August, depending on the weather. And summer solstice is really one of three processes for us during the year. We have, we have celebrations throughout the year on the sun up celebration. We have the sun down celebration, and then of course is the summer solstice. So we're right in between. And the sundown is usually not it is usually the sun does not come back up off the horizon in my relatives' locations of Alaska, and so that's what I mean by sundown. So there's a majority of my relatives, they do go out throughout the early winter, um, and everybody in the village will go out of their homes, go out of school, go out of their work, and say goodbye to the sun, and because it won't be seen for a couple of months. So the sun will not go above the horizon when the sun goes down. And then when the sun comes up, it's the same thing. Everybody from work goes out the door, everybody in the school, everybody at home. Once the sun does break that horizon, then they welcome the sun back. And summer solstice is the time of 24-hour daylight. And of course, it's going down now. And most of the time is not really relevant. It is the dependency on our fish camp and on our fishing and at fish camp. And the main goal during summer solstice for us is getting ready for the winter and preparing for dry fish, for smoked salmon, for whole frozen salmon. We have aged fish, aged salmon roe. We put as much as the the salmon away as possible during this time. And thank you for sharing there, Stephen.
Yes,
That is
I wanted to say, sent, Jeff sent me this image yesterday and I wanted to make sure we shared it, Jeff. It's really, thank you.
and yeah, and this is a small example of a city smoked salmon. And as you see there, I do have a smokehouse, and I use either alder wood or cottonwood or diamond willow. Some people just use anybody or any log or any sticks, you know, off the beach. But I like to use preferably cottonwood for smoking salmon. If there's no cottonwood around, I like to use alder, and so that's what you see there. There's alder being used as smoking the salmon. I have 3 different salmon preparing there. Preparing there is one, the backbones is on the right, the slabs are in the middle, and then the small portions is the stomach area. And so we take the stomach area off the slabs because most of the time the slabs will, when the salmon dries, it'll roll into like a U shape, and that's what we want to avoid. And so we take the stomach portion of the salmon off. What you don't see on there is the heads. We cut the heads in half, and we dry them as well. We smoke them, and you know, as Ray will want to hear, is that there's smoked salmon in the back. So that's just basically the whole slab being cut into portions, long portions, and that's how we make salmon strips. So summer solstice is a real busy time of year, and like I said, mentioned earlier, time is not really relevant. It is depending on the fishing conditions, the weather conditions, and getting ready for the winter and making sure we have this really key subsistence foods in our diet during the winter. If our life revolves around work, you know, hours will definitely be a consideration. But if you're not working, or if you take time off, time is not really relevant when you're at fish camp. The reason why is because, you know, it's daylight all the time. You know, it'll barely get dark at fish camp. And, you know, we really, if you take a nap, you won't really know what time it is because you don't really know, you know, whether it's going to be morning, afternoon, or evening with all that daylight. So we have, like I mentioned earlier, we have some celebrations. Summer solstice is a celebration of, you know, fishing, of course, for salmon. We get red salmon, king salmon. We get, let's see, chum salmon, pink salmon, and, you know, all of which we do consume, and we do prepare for winter. The celebrations I was talking about, we do have a salmon derby in one of the villages. And then we do have a gathering in another village to where we share our dried fish, our prepared fish, you know, whether it be aged salmon heads or aged full salmon. And you know, so there's you know, upon our return from fish camp, you know, some villages do celebrate by sharing. And just a few weeks ago, when summer solstice had actually started, there was a celebration by games such as two-legged race, horseshoe, target shooting, archery, you know, and canoe race, boat race, and using a hammer to nail and who can hammer a nail the fastest, and or the fastest. So there's a number of activities that is happening during the summer solstice celebration, and these activities, they can either go all week or they go during the weekend, depending on the location. As I mentioned, the further north our relatives are, the more daylight they have, and they have quite a celebration. And it's a real busy time of the year. That amount of salmon right there is about a dozen, and and that takes quite a workload to get to this point to where you see. The reason why I say that is because it'll take 2 days to really receive the salmon, to get, fish for the salmon. And then, 1 day to receive them, the next day to bring them, and then to prepare them. And this is the product of a third day. And it's just only the 12 or so salmon there. My family, we used to, like, if we lived in the village, we'd get 70 salmon per rotation, such as you see there, that's one rotation. There'll be a second rotation, a third rotation. So there's about a dozen salmon there, then it'll rotate to another dozen and another dozen. So the rotation depends on the size of the family. We got my family, we got my mother-in-law's or my father-in-law that, we used to take care of. We got my family, we got my wife's 2 sisters, we got my 2 sisters. So that's a huge number of preparing for families, and it takes a lot of work. And we usually have about 77 a batch at this point, as you see now. So in the village, it's extremely busy. It does take quite a long time, about 2 weeks to go from the beginning point of receiving the fish to preparing to putting them away. When that's all been done, we're all together. We're either at camp or we're back in the town, and we have a family gathering, and then we celebrate putting fish away during that time. Well, it may seem easy. We eat the heads, we eat the body, of course, the meat. We age them, we boil them, we dry them, we smoke them, we use rock salt to salt them. It may seem easy, but the hard part is dealing with brown bear, black bear, even a calf and moose calf and a moose cow. Of course, in my fish camp, we have wolves, fox, and we have camp robbers. We have seagulls to deal with, and you see eagles out there and hawks. So that is the challenging part, is to make sure that we keep our salmon. And of course, probably the biggest hurdle we face is the weather. So we hope for good weather. We hope for not as much bears showing up hungry. We're hoping that they're at another location besides ours. My cabin right now, a brown bear did go into the side wall, and I did have my nephew close that out for me. Being at fish camp is not always easy. And as I mentioned earlier, the most challenging time is rain. Of course, we want to dry all of our fish, or most of our fish. The ones we don't dry is what we age. And, in this case, we have a backup in which, Stephen, I thank you for showing that picture. That is the backup if we can't dry the fish. So we in turn use a smokehouse, and we at least have the salmon smoked quite heavy, if that's the case. So summer solstice is not only about preparing for winter. Summer solstice is being with family, and us family working together. And we either share a tent or we share a cabin. We invite my brother's family on over. We have a family celebration. It is a time that we spend more time with the grandkids. And you know, that is something that my kids really like is when when my grandkids are around, we love to have them. They'll spend a month with us, and that'll give time for them to have a break, and that'll be a family gathering to allow some of our Inupiaq language or my wife's Yupik language be given, to the grandkids. And so, of course, I do give some Inupiaq written curriculum to my grandkids, which is really unique because my wife speaks Yupik, and it's something different to see a different language in my family. And spending time with family, it is very healing. So whenever my grandkids come around, I always feel real comfortable. I feel like I'm, the part of me is here. So I feel much better at rest when they're around. And so summer solstice is is not only a huge part of the seasons to where we receive fish or receive subsistence foods, but it is it's a growth of our family structure, of our the guidance of how to put fish and where, and who prepares and who makes the dry fish rack, which could be about that size right there, or it could be about the size of a small cabin. And if that is the case, it is much easier to make, and because I don't need to worry about what sizes do I need to make sure I have, and the length and the height and the width. But if I have a huge, if I make a huge dry fish rack, it is the size of a small cabin. So summer solstice is a time for us to grow as a family together. It is a time for us to work together, to find our talents. Whether my grandson is great at tying knots or he's great at helping with releasing the net for net drifting, or my granddaughter, for that matter. So there's been a time where, my daughter was real good at tying knots, and, my grandson is good at tying knots. So, there's some skills involved that, has key, is key to our children to carry on, for that generation. And the proudest moment I can ever have, I'll give you like last night, for example, is when a granddaughter says, this smoked salmon is very good. It reminds me of the old grandma. So in other words, my parents, the fish me and my wife prepared was just as good as our parents. And here from a granddaughter, it's the most proudest moment we can ever have. And summer solstice is given a time for the grandkids to carry on what we're showing them. So that is how I learned. That is how my dad learned. That's how my grandfather learned, is by watching and doing and experiencing. I'm fortunate my great grandma, she translated in our language from Inupiaq to English in our Inupiaq writing style. And so she interpreted both in Inupiaq and English. But overall, there is no manual on how to get ready for fish camp. And summer solstice is a time to where we don't really think about, okay, we got a checklist for this, we got a checklist for that, but we do have the education from seeing when we were younger. And that is, that's why I said the most, the most heartwarming celebration I had was last night when my granddaughter said, "This tastes so good, it tastes like the old grams." So that's what summer solstice is. Really for me as an Alaskan, I can definitely go on more with the protection of the fish, and the protection of the dried fish, the cabin. And it could take quite a while to finish up and explaining what summer solstice means to me and my family. Thank you for your time.
Jeff, thank you so much. I really, really great share there. Learning about fish camp. Appreciate that sharing. That was, I learned a lot just listening. I was going to ask you if that smoke shelter does it have a door on it, or is it kept open intentionally?
It does have a door.
Okay.
Yeah, it does have a door for closing when the smoke is in the full swing.
Yeah.
And of course, I don't burn the alder at night, so I have that open so the air can flow through.
Okay. Okay.
Yep. And yeah, was there any other questions? Right. Thank you for giving me this time, Stephen.
Yeah, we'll see you next session too, Jeff. Hope you can join us again when we meet in a couple of weeks. We are nearing the top of the hour, and I want to make sure we honor everyone's time, and I appreciate those that were able to stay on with us for the full two hours. I know that's a long time in Zoom timetables, but really appreciate everyone coming on and being part of this discussion. And we're going to do this again in 2 weeks, and we're going to do this on I believe the 21st of July, same time, 2 to 4 p.m. Central. So we hope to see you back again for this next session. Thank you so much, Doc Foster, and again, I just want to thank everyone for staying with us for this broadcast, and we'll meet again in 2 weeks. And we'll talk more about summertime activities, rituals, and ceremonies with you all. So until next time, everyone, please stay safe, stay healthy, and most importantly, stay connected. So we'll see you again. Thank you, everybody.
See you guys again.